You're listening to Lawyer Radio. Real lawyers, real talk, and everything you need to know without all that legal mumbo jumbo. Let's get into it. All right. I'm here today with Jennifer Netska. She's a personal injury attorney in the Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. Thanks for being here today, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me, Christina.
This is Lawyer Radio, and you are guest number 3. You're going to be one of the OGs right now.
I'm excited for that. Okay.
Right. So you do personal injury, and some people in the community may know them as ambulance chasers.
I know, but I have
that with love, Jennifer.
I have my response to that. I can't call you, but you can call me. So I can't be an ambulance chaser because I cannot reach out to you. And any lawyer that's chasing you after an accident, that's not a lawyer you want to work with.
Yeah. So I totally agree with that. And, I hope with Lawyer Radio that we can do something to dispel the characterization of attorneys as ambulance chasers and blood-sucking vampires and, all that sort of thing. Something about being a good start at the bottom of the ocean.
Right. I agree. Yeah. That would be wonderful.
It would be, right? So that's my mission. But my mission is also to educate the public about things that they should know about, stuff that we know that we wish the public knew. And I think personal injury is one of those areas that really does affect everybody. And I'll let you sort of explain what you do, but I always think like slip and falls, somebody who fell or injured themselves in some way and perhaps has an action against another person or another entity as a result of that. So tell me what you
do. That's exactly right. I mean, personal injury can be super broad. Of course, it's someone that sustained an injury through no fault of their own, or maybe there is a little bit of shared fault. But the fact of the matter is they were injured and they're suffering and they have medical bills, medical expenses, setbacks, future cares, time out of work, even time lost from family events, anything. It causes true setbacks. And a personal injury case, again, it's through no fault of your own, and somebody else was responsible or contributed to the root cause of that. And the laws here in the States provide for a negligence-based claim. And so when somebody else is negligent or could have, should have, would have done something to prevent another person from getting injured, you have a claim and a viable cause of action. So it really can be very wide. I don't like to overcomplicate it. It can be something as simple and clean as a rear-end car accident on a highway. It could be a slip and fall at your local grocery store on a huge wet puddle. But there's other complicated matters that sometimes people don't realize. I mean, I've had elevator malfunctions. The elevator door slammed closed and don't realize that an elderly person's in the way. Work-related, scaffolding accidents. Things collapse and fall off skyscrapers in all these booming cities. They're rushing through construction jobs and there's rocks flying. That hit random pedestrians. I've even had somebody chop off a sign and they forgot the stub, but it blends in with the concrete and someone goes down. So it really can be anything that causes an injury, and it's through no fault of that individual.
And does it have to be a physical injury? Could it be a financial injury, or is that something different?
Yeah, well, you have to have damages in order to have a personal injury case. So you have to be done wrong in some form or fashion. Personal injury, we're looking for an actual injured party, but there's other components to a personal injury case, such as emotional damage, loss of consortium. I mean, if someone's spouse is affected, that affects the relationship. That's a viable claim. Inability to work or achieve benchmarks and future activities and goals and dreams that somebody once had, all that comes into a personal injury case. So maybe the injury is not as clear, but it can be emotional or it can be goal-oriented. And I've seen those cases too.
Yeah, there's sort of a joke that, somebody falls and like, oh, I'm going to sue somebody. Who am I going to sue? But I guess the thing is, I remember from first year of law school in torts, there has to be damage. That's one of the elements of negligence. Can it be like, can you scrape your knee and have a claim? Or does it really have to be something a little more profound than that?
I am a true advocate of emphasizing that it needs to be a profound injury. And that's really where some of the negative connotations with personal injury comes in. You fall and stub your toe, your flip-flop gets caught on the sidewalk, you lost your little toenail. Those are personally not a case, those are not cases that I would take. You need damages. And so an accident happens and you're damaged, and we can attribute that and calculate a true injury here. Treatment is needed, and even future treatment may be needed. But that's where I think the negative connotation would come in with a personal injury lawyer, because people out there can become sue happy. So, you trip and you lose your toenail, because you're clumsy and there happens to be a tiny little crack. That's not a profound injury to me. So we try to do a good job of vetting cases, really having good, thorough consultations and understanding what happened, what exactly happened, and what is your injury? Talk to me about it. I want to get to the bottom of it and really get to know the client and spend the extra time on the consult side. That way, when we do accept the case, we're not looking at it 6-7 months later, we're saying, what the heck was the injury? And then the insurance company scratching their head. And that's where that negative connotation comes in. So I try to do a good job in the beginning, really vetting injured clients, injured parties.
Yeah, because the other thing that maybe people don't realize is what they're also hiring is your expertise. It's just not just your ability to go to court and, try to help them prevail and get money. Because I think that is how a lot of people look at it. But for someone who really has an injury that affects their lives, affects their relationship with their spouse, and really, I mean, it can be devastating.
Right. Yeah, I've seen it.
I would say most of the people, hopefully, that are in the legal system are people like that. They really do have a legitimate claim.
It's true.
Yeah. So of course, there's always going to be a few bad apples that ruin it for everybody. The lawyer that just goes around and makes demands just for fun to see what they can get out of it. Partly what the person is getting with your expertise, partly what they're paying for, because they are paying for it in some fashion later, it comes out of their settlement, is your expertise. So your expertise to recognize when they actually have a viable claim, meaning a claim that can be litigated, will have some teeth, an insurance company will respond to, and not just say, what are you doing here? Get lost.
That's exactly correct. I try my hardest to explain that to clients at the beginning. It's not, a money chase, a money grab, and I don't like to look at it in that fashion. You're truly injured, and my job is to really vet out your injury here. Who is responsible? What happened? What are the laws? And I try to guide my clients to the finish line. I mean, the end goal, of course, is monetary recovery, but that monetary recovery is to compensate you for the injuries, the pain and suffering, the past pain and suffering, and what the future might look like, and all the expenses along the way. And insurance companies are notorious for taking advantage of somebody that doesn't have a lawyer, is unrepresented. So there's so many tricks up the insurance company's sleeve. And so I really try to avoid those landmines and let the client know what those landmines might look like, and encourage them that if you are truly injured, I mean, they're going to take you to the cleaners. They're really going to try to trick you and play games. So I always encourage somebody that if you are actually involved in an accident, before the insurance company takes you for a ride, it is always recommended that you get you have your case vetted out by a personal injury attorney.
At least talk to somebody first.
Right.
Because it might be attractive if you get a phone call and someone's offering you a check. It might be attractive to take that because maybe you're in a bad spot. Maybe you really need the money.
I've seen it. I have seen it. And I've even had clients, one of them I could actually think back. I couldn't even believe it. They have these insurance practices. I mean, it's like corporate policy for some of these big names that you see on all of the commercials, these big auto insurance companies. I mean, within 48 hours of an accident happening, they are sending a DocuSign to your email with $1,500, $2,000, sign here, the check will be overnighted to you. I've had clients with serious injuries, hospital visits, EMS rides, and those bills start coming in the mail 2 months later after the billing, hospitals process their billing. But they signed a DocuSign and got $2,000. That $2,000 is long gone, and you signed a release. So it's really, I call it predatory practices that these insurance companies, engage in and try to get rid of you for pennies on the dollar. But I encourage everyone, don't sign anything and just wait. Talk to an attorney sooner than later, of course, because
are those enforceable?
So it's funny that you asked that, because I've had a couple of scenarios and I've consulted with some other attorneys we've kind of brainstormed around the same thing. We have to file motions, we'll file to get that turned over or tossed out, because that we'll argue exactly that. That is this really enforceable? The client didn't know what happened. You got them in a predatory situation. Their adrenaline's pumping. They weren't represented. You didn't even give them a chance to get out of the hospital and take off the brace or get the crutches off before you sent them a release. That's insane. So it's being argued. It is argued when you do see it. They'll go both ways. So I try to at least get the message across. I mean, let's not get ourselves into those situations. Don't sign anything. Like I always say, fast money or someone's dangling money, nothing's free out there. So if someone's dangling $1,500, I heard somebody that accepted $750, and I'm like, yeah, hard to get out of that.
That really is. I wonder if there's some kind of consumer protection implications there.
Yeah, I'm curious further too. I just hope that when clients come my way, I'm like, did you sign anything? And I'm praying for that answer to be no. So it's not as frequent, but I try to get the message out there. Like, don't engage with the insurance company after the accident. Don't do it. They're sending you documents. They're all confusing. I've even had clients who thought they were just getting their car fixed. Like, I just want to get my car fixed. You know, I just want to get the car fixed. I thought it was an estimate, and it's a release for the body for bodily injury.
I love when I go places. It's usually a doctor's office, sometimes a gym, which I can understand why they do that too. They'll send you this, they'll just put this this pad in front of you, like at a desk where you do the digital signature, but you don't actually have a paper in front of you and there's nothing to read. And, you know, of course, as a lawyer, I'll bust on them and be like, what are you asking me to sign? How can you ask me to sign something when you haven't even given me the document that I'm allegedly signing?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Release, don't worry. It's informed consent. Don't worry. And I'm like, well, can I see it? I'd really like to see what I'm signing.
It's exactly the same. Yes.
And I can tell from their reaction that nobody ever asks them what they're signing. They never ask for the document.
No, never. That's like, I've seen actually another example of that where a child, I think, was injured at a kid's trampoline park or something like that. And the parents have to sign a waiver for the kids to come in, but they're hosting these birthday parties and they have, 23-year-olds running around and somebody breaks an arm or they're left unattended during these birthday parties, but it was the same scenario. Parents had no idea what they were signing. If they were signing in, nothing's explained to them, and they say, "Oh, it was just like a blank DocuSign." So those I think more routinely get thrown out. They don't know what they're signing. It's not presented to them, and the legal language, it's not easily understandable to anybody.
Okay, so tip number 1: if you come away from this interview with nothing more, it should be don't sign anything without reading it first in full and understanding it. So if you read it and you don't really understand what it says, don't let the person sticking it in front of you paraphrase it for you.
Right.
Because they might not be trustworthy. They might not even know what the heck they're talking about. Have an attorney look it over before you sign it.
Yep.
Good sound advice.
It is a good one.
So how long have you been doing this?
So just shy of 10 years.
Okay.
I started in New York. That's where I'm originally from. And 4 years ago, I moved down to Fort Lauderdale, South Florida. So I'm licensed in New York and in Florida, and I do personal injury in both states, primarily Florida, statewide, but we still take cases in New York, and I still have my contacts up in New York, and I practice in both states.
So you've been doing this long enough that you know what you're doing. You can see patterns and, you see things before it happens, right? That's kind of what happens when you get to be experienced at something. So tell us what some of the things are that you see again and again that you would just like to caution people against.
Okay.
Trampolines reminded me of this.
2 big ones really come to mind. And one is, those that do have an active personal injury case and they are injured, I wish I can get the message across to everybody, whoever is listening, is if you're injured and you have an active case, your claim number, you're not even a name or a person to the insurance company and the insurance adjuster or insurance attorney on the other side. And all they're basing your case on is medical records, medical bills, what is being submitted and presented. So I often hear clients, or individuals, think that they're going to receive the moon and the stars for their accident case when they're hurting their own case. So clients will complain, "Oh, I'm in pain. Well, treat." but they have other extracurricular activities and work and life gets in the way, which I recognize, I respect, and I understand. However, if you're injured, injured people treat. And so I like to emphasize that settlement values, settlement money is directly, it equals treatment. So somebody that's injured and somebody that treats, that's settlement money. So everyone that's glamorizing and all the billboards that you see, $2, $3, $4, $5 million, those are injured parties that committed to treatment and substantiated their claim. So I try to make it clear that you can get into a car accident, but and you may be injured, but if you're not going to actually treat for your injuries, you really have no case. You have no case. So
you're not just compensated for the injury and how it may have affected your life. Like, for instance, now I don't know, you walk with a limp and you can't ski and you can't rollerblade and you can't walk down your steep driveway. That's all well and good, but you have to be doing something actively to also ameliorate the problem. Right?
Yes, completely true. I tell clients verbatim, treatment equals value. The highest value settlements that you see out there, those clients were truly injured and they committed to treatment. So you can cry all we want and we can say that we're injured and I don't sleep well, but the insurance company doesn't care that you don't sleep well. They have no documentation that supports that you're hurting, you're in pain. Injured people treat. And so I always tell clients, I work with what I have. So if you go to the one hospital visit and one chiropractor visit, how injured are you? What is the value there? The insurance company's going to put a dollar figure on that, opposed to somebody that's injured as well and complains and they have consistent treatment and they follow their doctor's recommendation. So I'm not in a position to tell clients where to go, how often to go, but I am in a position to let them know that if you're injured, you're telling me that you're injured. Injured people treat. People that treat add value to their case. Those that don't treat, there's no value.
Is it because it becomes a credibility issue?
And that's exactly what these insurance companies will say to us as the attorney. So I try to emphasize that to clients. I mean, they will say to me, how injured is your client? Really? I mean, the accident was back in the summer of 2024, but we're going into February now of 2025. And, your client went to the primary care doctor twice. I mean, healthy people do that. How injured your client, Miss Netska? That's hard to come back from. So I always try to make it clear every step of the way. I can't force you to treat. I'm not in a position to tell you what to do. I am not a doctor, can't ethically do that. But what I can tell you is if you aren't injured, injured people treat, and treatment equals value.
Okay, good to know. But how can we avoid ever being in that situation in the first place? I mean, obviously, we don't want to get injured. If we do, we want to be able to be compensated for that. But I'd rather not get injured or have to deal with it at all. When you mentioned the trampoline, I feel like, have you seen those Instagram things going around? Like a cardiologist will say, I've been working in the ER for 50 million years and I would never. And then they list like 3 things like ride a motorcycle, bungee jump. So for you, like what are those things? I was guessing trampoline, but maybe it's not, what would you not do?
Okay, so I guess that's one of them. So there's a couple of different, it's not just trampoline. I wouldn't let my kid go to a trampoline park or a skate park unattended or on their own. I've seen a lot of cases like that. I guess once you hit a certain age, of course, the teenagers are going to go regardless of what you say. But young children, I would not let run off at those gymnastic centers, the trampoline parks, or the skate parks. I've seen a lot of cases involving injuries there. They're always left unattended, and there's a high schooler that's watching 50 kids run around so they're not doing anything to prevent your child's injury. Another thing that I definitely wouldn't do is I would not wear a seatbelt in an Uber, even if you're in the back seat. I know a lot of people actually don't wear a seatbelt in the back seat. If I'm in the back seat of an Uber, I have my seatbelt on. Reason being is I've had dozens of cases where they have the dash cam and so that gets presented. And then also there's data downloads that after a crash, you can get the data downloaded from the car and you can know whether or not those seatbelts were triggered. So God forbid you're involved in an Uber accident, the insurance attorney on the other side, if they can decipher whether or not you had a seatbelt on in that back seat, that can also contribute to tanking your case. So Uber drivers, everybody wants a good sober ride. We don't drink and drive. I think everyone rides around an Uber, including myself. But I would definitely wear a seatbelt in the back of an Uber and be cautious because Uber doesn't have the most prestigious vetting process. I can say that. So really anybody can be an Uber driver. So keep an eye on your driver and buckle up in the back seat. That's something that I would recommend.
Okay, good to know. Actually, there was a case in the New York Times. Actually, I know the person that this happened to, where they used the Uber app, but I think they had also used the Uber Eats app too.
Okay.
And, when you sign up for any app, you have to sign all this stuff. You have to click the box that you read the disclosures and all of that. And so they got into a terrible car accident in the Uber and were told that they couldn't sue because there's an arbitration provision in that little thing that you just click. And it was enforced. The court enforced it. And it seemed so absurd. I mean, are you seeing that happening?
Not in my jurisdiction. I've heard of it as well. Uber hasn't tried to trigger that kind of language, at least on any of my cases. I haven't seen it here in Florida. I have heard of it, yes. But Uber is really, really different from state to state. And this is how I can make it crystal clear. I mean, I'm licensed in New York. I'm licensed in Florida. If you are involved in an Uber accident and you're in the backseat, you called that Uber. There is no coverage for passengers in Florida if they are involved in a car accident and they're sitting in the back of an Uber, and unless you have your own insurance. It's called uninsured motorist coverage. So unless your Uber driver was one that was responsible, let's say your driver was responsible for the accident and you're in the backseat, that's one scenario. But let's just say somebody hits you in an intersection. It was no fault of the Uber driver. You both were injured. No coverage. No coverage. You can't go after Uber. There is no coverage in Florida.
And you can't go after the driver because the driver is an agent of Uber.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if they have no viable coverage either, there's nothing there. Yeah, because if they're not at fault. So if you're in the back of an Uber and your driver is not responsible for the accident, he's carrying on his merry way, but somebody blasts you from the other side. So your Uber driver is not at fault, and the guy that hits you in your Uber, the one that is at fault, he carries no coverage or anything like that. Uber does nothing to protect the passenger. Clients are shocked. I mean, I've had catastrophic injuries where they're like, there's no way that you can't go after Uber. If Uber wasn't responsible for the crash, they don't provide any additional layers of coverage. They're going to say their driver was not responsible and we don't carry uninsured coverage. So the guy that blasted you who didn't have coverage.
So if I'm in the back and I get injured, can I do something with my own auto insurance?
Yes, and that's really the hook there. And it's optional because it's called uninsured motorist coverage. It's an additional coverage on your policy that we pay for. Highly encourage that, especially in Florida. Florida is notorious for having a lot of uninsured drivers. So I think the rate now is like 20% or more, especially in South Florida, are uninsured drivers on the road. So you can get hit, and the person that hits you, is they're not collectible. If they don't have any assets to collect off of, if they do not have coverage, you are out of loss unless you had your own layer of protection with your own policy. So I highly encourage it. I mean, there's Ubers all over the road. So if you get blasted by some car, Uber's going to do nothing. They're like, oh, I'm in an Uber, they'll protect me. No. In Florida, no. In New York, they do have a layer of protection for their passengers. So I want to make sure I distinguish there. But every state's different. So your Uber driver in New York, yeah, he may not be at fault.
Because of the terms and conditions that you click. So for instance, you don't do that when you get in a cab. So is it different if you're in a cab?
It depends, because in Florida, the law, so it's not even like the terms and conditions of the app. Florida doesn't call for or make it mandatory for Uber to provide that coverage. So they operate here without it. And so long as that Uber driver was not responsible for the crash, too bad for their passenger. So
then who are you suing Uber?
And then Uber has coverage. Yes. $1 million and then excess and all that other layers of coverage. Yes.
And it is important to point out that this varies from state to state. And right now we're talking about Florida.
Yeah. In New York, if your Uber driver was not at fault for your accident and you were involved in an accident in an Uber, there is coverage provided to you when your Uber driver, even if your Uber driver was not responsible. You can still go after Uber and Uber will provide you with a layer of coverage. Here in Florida, I highly encourage you put it on your own policy because you never know who's going to hit you or you can't pick who you're involved in an accident with. And so Uber is no exception. They're not affording anything to their passengers.
So the best protection you can have is if you're getting in an Uber, hope and pray, or that's number two. Number one is have your own insurance.
Yeah, on my own personal automobile insurance policy, it's not incredibly expensive. I know insurance and everywhere is just generally speaking, it is very expensive and everyone's complaining about that. But to add that additional coverage, it's not exorbitantly expensive. And I highly, highly recommend that. It's called uninsured motorist coverage. And so God forbid I'm involved in any automobile accident and I'm not in my vehicle and that whoever was responsible didn't have coverage, I could at least come back and sue my own insurance company and get compensated. But if you don't have it, I mean, we tell clients all the time, I'm so sorry that you're injured, but there's nothing here.
Ooh, that's got to be a hard pill to swallow.
It is, yeah.
Especially if you really have significant injuries.
I see it all the time. I see it all the time. It's really sad.
That is really scary.
Most people just don't know. So.
Yeah, no, they don't. I mean, you know what? You don't know until you have to know, which is.
Yeah. Most clients are like, I don't even know what it is. I didn't know. And I'm like, I completely understand that. And you know what? I think it comes back to when those sales agents, when they're selling you these insurance policies, you know, they could do, and they don't care, but it would be nice if they did a little bit of a better job in saying like, okay, you're buying a policy and this is this, this is that, this is this, and this is that. But they don't. So I have yet to meet a client where they really knew these different layers of coverage. They don't know. They don't know.
No. I mean, I'm an attorney and I don't know what a lot of it is.
Right.
But insurance can be sort of complicated, especially for the average person that maybe doesn't deal with it all the time.
And I understand the confusion. I totally understand where it's coming from. I just wish I can get the message out before.
Well, we're doing it here.
Yeah.
So what else? The dangers of trampolines, what else?
What else do I wish I can let? Skate parks, yes. Buckling up in an Uber and carrying uninsured motorist coverage.
I mean, there must be things you see like all the time. You know, there's things I see in divorce because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I see it all again and again and again. And it's just, and you must see that too.
Another one is, I mean, it kind of ties back to what I was saying a few minutes ago is, I'll get clients that say, oh I've been in pain since this accident. You know, the accident was 2 months ago, or somebody called a few weeks ago. My mom, she's really been struggling since this accident. It's been 2 months. You know, she wants to have a consultation. We have the consultation. I find out the accident was 2 months ago. I mean, again, I try to guide the client and explain in plain English, look at it from an insurance company's lens. You're claiming that you're injured. You waited 2 months to see a doctor. So if there's anything, something else that I can broadcast is if you're involved in any type of accident, go and seek treatment. At least get the initial documented. Maybe those aches and pains never come to fruition, or maybe they go away. But those gaps in treatment or your failure to document an injury is a total case loser. And I hate to turn it down. I feel sorry that you're struggling the last 2 months, but you did nothing. There's no case here. So that's something I say, I encourage, go get checked out, get the medical documentation, at least to get started. If you never want to go back or you don't need to, great. But I mean, you're sitting around for 2 months and aches and pains, no case.
Let's say I'll give a car accident as an example. Should you always call the police so that they come and document everything?
Always call the police so that it is documented. In New York, I think it's post-COVID, I think, on some of those major highways, unless you're requesting an ambulance, the police will not come. So that makes it a little tricky. I know, it's interesting. It makes it a little tricky. So depending on where we're talking about, generally the answer is yes. Every time you do want to call the police, you indicate whether or not you feel like you need a hospital visit and an ambulance ride. But even if not, you definitely want the police report. And the reason is because I also can count many times where true accidents really did occur. The client is injured, but they come to me and they say, well, I don't know who hit me. I've even had somebody say, well, I got their insurance card. And when we run the insurance, it was like expired 3 years ago. Or I got the license, a picture, a screenshot of the license plate. Can we do something with that? It's a fake tag. There's no insurance attached to it. So the purpose of calling the police at the scene of the accident is so that they verify this information. Anyone can lie to you on the side of the road. I've had it happen many, many times. And it, unfortunately, it really does. It becomes like a dead end. And clients think that, we're, rocket scientists here, and I'm not going to be able, investigations can only go so far. Those live cams, they're only live cams. They don't have unlimited storage space and capacity. So these roads they're not on record 24/7. That's not going to crack the code. So really it's a verification process in order to verify the who, what, where, when, and how. And if you can provide that to your attorney, you've jump-started your case. We already got us ahead of the game, as opposed to coming to me and saying, here's a screenshot of the plate number. Well, the plate number is great, but there's no insurance, or the insurance card you gave me is expired years ago. And
it also doesn't mean that's who was driving.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a lot of, it's verification, and it's helpful for your case. And a lot of it rides on that. So I also try to tell clients, insurance really is kind of the name of the game on personal injury, because in Florida and New York, there's different laws for different places, but some people, they're really hard to collect against personally. So can you? Yes. But most of the time, people are really judgment proof. There's no assets, big glamorous assets that are sitting around for us to go tag after and collect. And by the time you get to the finish line, you're so far down on the totem pole and you're waiting years and years and years for a judgment. Your fast pass is kind of how I like to describe it, is through insurance. And so insurance is the name of the game in personal injury, and that's who is affording coverage for a loss. And so identifying the insurance is key for automobile accidents.
Okay. So if you're in a state that will do it, make sure that you call the police so that it's documented, you get a police report, all of that. I take pictures of everything.
Yeah, that's a huge recommendation too. I mean, it's 2025. Yeah. I mean, to me at this point, I try to tell clients, I'm like, how is it possible that you were involved in an accident and you didn't decide to take a picture?
Yeah, I mean, we take pictures of dinner, right? You can take pictures of an accident.
Exactly. So it's almost kind of like a given, and I expect it. You were involved in an accident there. There's no way you don't have pictures. But so we always ask for pictures. We ask for videos, dump it all on us. But yes, absolutely. You're going to call the police and get it all documented, and you're going to take photos. Even actually, this one might not be as obvious, but taking photos of injury is helpful. So someone might slam their knees on a dashboard, hit their head, and have a gash or some bleeding. Having those progress photos, or something swelled up, having progress photos of your injuries is also really valuable for your case, because sometimes, like I mentioned before, you may not need to treat every single day, or sometimes injuries are harder to explain, but photographs can help guide us and add value to your case.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only way to, because when months and years start going by, memories fade. You don't always recall memories back accurately. And it's really valuable to have something that documents what happened, as soon as it happened. Right. So what I do, and I would recommend for anybody, because if you have too many photos, fine. But if you don't have enough, that could be a problem. I take photos of close-ups of different things. I'll get like a wide shot. I'll get, a shot where I can see like the whole, everything all together, like the whole shot, like what the street looked like if it was on the grass, and which captures the weather, things
it's so
like
true.
that.
And the clients that produce that over to us, it helps their case. I mean, their case is lined up so much better. You're able to tell me this is the intersection. And even if you narrate it in just plain English, it doesn't have to be anything crazy or fancy, but I was coming this way and the other car was coming this way. Here's the intersection. That is incredibly helpful for your case. Because
what about the driver? Do you want a picture of the driver?
Honestly, I've seen cases where the other driver will dispute they were even involved. Yeah. They'll say it wasn't them. We're seeing, I saw recently, actually, it was New York, it went completely viral, where they jammed on the brake on I don't know if you saw it, but they jammed on the brake on a highway and let the guy hit him.
Oh, I've
And
heard
then they
that.
got
Yeah.
out and the dash cam caught it on camera, but they switched seats. And so getting a photograph or having dash cam footage is really, really valuable. That's
Yeah.
another tip I can say is dash cam. Those are golden now. Those are
Yeah,
those
they
are key.
And you're right. This is 2025, people. I mean,
Mhm.
we're everywhere. I mean, they were able to completely recreate practically Luigi Mangione, the guy that shot the
Yeah,
CEO. They were able to pretty much figure
yeah,
out what he did all day just from various video clips, which is
yeah.
really
It's wild. I know. I know. I mean, we have cameras around our house. We have cameras in our
yeah.
children's nursery. I mean, putting one on your car when someone spends a lot of time in the car and car accidents happen and people get sued. I mean, it's definitely a big recommendation and adds a lot of value if you had some dash cam. You tiny little thing, it goes right above the right behind the rear view mirror. You don't even see it. It's not in your way.
Might not be a bad investment just to have just because it's 2025. Now,
Yeah.
what are some things that you should or should not say when you get out of the car? Because one thing I've heard that can affect your case is if you say I'm sorry, even if you didn't really
Yeah,
do anything, because we're all taught to be like so nice, and
I know.
it's
I
a
know.
natural thing to just say I'm sorry, even if you really didn't do anything.
Yeah. So there's some attorneys out there that will say, don't say anything. And if you did, your case is ruined. I think the honest truth is your case wouldn't be ruined if get out of the car. And I've had clients say to me, like, I'm just a sensitive person and I'm just so sorry for like the incident as a whole. That's why I was saying sorry, but no, I wasn't accepting fault. Now I can come back from that and, when the case moves forward and the client was in the heat of the moment, their adrenaline is pumping. So her saying sorry is just take it and throw it out the window. But generally, you don't want to admit fault. You also don't want to say that you're not injured. That I think is a big one. Because EMS or when the insurance company calls you, and they'll always call you within the first 12 hours of an accident. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get you on the phone before you have legal counsel. And they're going to take what's called a recorded statement. So what they're trying to get you to say is that you're not injured and that you're fine. And they want you to say that within the first 24 hours when they reach out. So I say, don't ever say that. Aches and pains start, days later after you're laying in bed and you're like, oh my gosh, everything just started swelling up. I had the worst night of sleep. Now I'm going to go to check out the urgent care because of this accident. And then that's when these big insurance companies will pop out with the recording. So don't say that you're not injured. Say you don't know. That's what I tell the clients. If you don't know yet, it's a perfectly fine answer to say, I really don't know how I'm feeling right now. My adrenaline's pumping. I'll have to let you know once I go home and settle in.
Yeah, because I think that's also another just natural thing that we say as humans. We'll say, are you okay?
Exactly. And so the second you say, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay, no, I'm all right, that's getting documented somewhere. And it often will go in the police report to denied medical attention, said they were okay. That makes its way to the insurance company. And now, boom, 2 months later, you're in treatment with a personal injury attorney who's advocating for your injuries. And the insurance company's waving that in our face. Your client said they weren't injured. Well, of course, until they got a lawyer, they weren't injured. Yeah. So I say,
does that mean their case is dead in the water? I mean, because there are latent injuries, right?
Yeah.
And
that's why I say it loosely.
Yeah.
There's ways to come at it. So your case is not dead in the water. There's ways to come back from that. But if you can avoid saying it, I avoid saying it. You just say, I don't know. Because it is true. If I got into a car accident, God forbid, I hope I don't today, but later this evening, your adrenaline's pumping. And that's even as a personal injury attorney, your adrenaline is pumping. And so just like you said, the injuries can come up later. The aches and pains start after that bad night of sleep. And you don't want unnecessary records that say, insured said she was fine.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So what if somebody, because I'm thinking that I always want to get a picture of the person's driver's license, their insurance card, and their registration. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me for that, which is kind of bizarre. Maybe I just don't remember. Is there any reason to not cooperate and do that? Let somebody take pictures of those things?
No, there's no reason. The only time I've seen where there was a reason not to do that was like staged incidents. Like if a client called, like if I spoke to somebody, they were like, I'm not injured and this is not a claim for me, but they're saying that they were involved in an accident. They asked for all my insurance information, but I didn't understand why. I mean, that would be a fishy situation. I would, in fact, call my own insurance company and say, somebody asked for my insurance information and was not involved in an accident. But no, I find no reason not to cooperate. in doing the insurance exchange, because they're gonna find out, yeah, they'll run your
What do
information.
you do? This happens a lot. And I really don't know. I don't have a real opinion about it. Mostly because I don't do PI. So I think I need you to tell me. What do you do when the person goes, let's not go through insurance. Let's just handle this on our own. I'll
It's
pay.
so
Let's assume it's the other person's fault. I'll pay for all your repairs.
It's so common. It's so common. I say most people want to avoid conflict. I understand. Nobody wants to get into a screaming match or a war on the side of the road, and you don't know, people are weirdos out there. When they say that, I would just calmly diffuse, deflect, and just say, "I will. Let me just take down your information. Let's talk about it later." But don't accept money on the side of a highway after an accident, and don't let them, throw you a couple bucks to get your car. I mean, I've had clients where they say, "Oh, somebody offered me $500 to get my bumper fixed," but then they go and get the estimate. It was $2,000. What are we doing?
And then they start arguing about the estimate. That's what I've seen. It's like, well,
Right.
it's not that much. I know a guy.
Right.
Yeah, your
Everyone
guy
knows a
does
guy.
shitty work too.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
is it too late at that when you've gone down that rabbit hole? Is it too late to then contact insurance and just do
I mean, if some people, like, if you say, "Oh, you'll take care of it," okay, fine, and you leave without viable information, I don't know that that's a case that I would even be able to take. So I think you could come back from it, like, if you exchange the information and then you're having a couple of exchanges. I've had cases like that before where the guy was like, "Oh, we'll pay for the injuries. We'll pay for the car, but here's my insurance information." All right, we can backtrack that and get to the source. We'll get straight to the source and call the insurance company. But if you're gonna leave the scene and you're just gonna exchange phone numbers with the guy and hope that this guy's gonna write the check to fix your car, no case. No case.
So
You
still
left the
call the
scene.
police, still get the police report.
Yeah.
If you have injuries, go to the hospital. If you have damage to your car, do the pictures, do the whole routine. You don't have to say yes or no on the spot, whether you're going to work out some
Right.
with the person.
Right.
But at least do all those things, and because you still can do the side deal if you want to.
Yeah. And one last thing that I could kind of add to that, and I'm speaking more for Florida right now when I say this. Okay, say about hospital. So unless you are having trouble breathing, or you're excessively bleeding, or you feel like there's a true a broken bone, or you have underlying conditions that we're worried about, go to the hospital. Absolutely. And I'm no doctor, so I'm not in a position to say. I'm just saying from my experience looking at these cases. But if none of that applies to you and you're thinking, okay, then maybe this is like a soft tissue kind of injury, aches and pains, neck and back, head, but there's no blood, there's nothing gushing, your bones are not broken. In Florida, I find that if you go to the hospital, the bills are so exorbitant that it sharply eats into available benefits and coverage and your net recovery on a settlement. And so if a client is able to go to an urgent care as instead of a hospital, if they can, they're minimizing some of their exposure and their bills, and they're kind of preserving some of the benefits that's outlined in an insurance policy, an auto insurance policy, if they don't go to the hospital. So I'm no doctor. Go to the hospital if you feel the need, make your own judgment call. But what we do see is the clients that do go to the hospital, if they're just doing, a quick x-ray of a hand that is not broken, or an elbow that we know is not broken, you're just spending time in the emergency room. The hospital is eating up.
So you don't need to go to the hospital, but you could go to your own doctor.
Yeah, I mean, you have a case. I mean, yeah, even if you wake up even if you don't go to the hospital, or you don't go to an urgent care, you go to a chiropractor 2-3 days later. Great. You've preserved resource, medical treatment. You absolutely have a case. Now, if you go to the hospital and you're injured, absolutely you have a case. It's just, if you don't necessarily need to spend the time and resources sitting in an emergency room, those bills are astronomical, and it really impacts the recovery on cases in Florida.
That's kind of interesting, because it's a tricky balance between, not ignoring
An
the
injury,
fact that
right?
you may have an injury, even if it's not something catastrophic.
I would tell my own personal family or a client, like, I like, if I'm involved in an accident, please go to urgent care right away. Go to urgent care. Absolutely get checked out, because I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what's going on if your head hits, but that's me. I would recommend urgent care. And it's to minimize the bills. The bills are so insane, and there's very nominal coverage in Florida. So I don't know why that's allowed. That's beyond my area of expertise. But the coverage is so small here in Florida. It's 10,000. In New York, it's 50. So if that puts it into perspective, I've had
Can you
clients
buy
that are
more?
yes, you can buy more through med pay. Yep, you can add additional medical coverage to your insurance policy. But if you just go to like an emergency room after an accident, I have a client right now. She's there for 4 hours. She's like, there's no way that the bill can be that bad. $23,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's more than double of the full 10,000 in coverage for medical in Florida.
Yeah.
That's just why.
We could do a whole show just on insurance.
Oh yeah.
It's a pretty complex area. Before I let you go, I do feel like we should just give workers' comp an honorable mention because a lot of times these are related. Can you just say how it's related and when it's implicated?
Workers' comp is often a companion claim in Florida. Workers' comp triggers when the accident takes place while on the job or on the clock, or in furtherance of somebody else's business. In Florida, you can have an active personal injury claim as well as a workers' compensation claim at the same time. The personal injury claim is when you're going after a third party that is not your employer, but somehow they had some kind of involvement, some kind of negligence and that resulted in your injuries. While the workers' comp is an insurance that you're going after in Florida to compensate you for injuries because the accident took place while employed on the clock on the job. Contrast that in New York, you cannot sue your employer. It's workers' comp or personal injury. So there's certain differences in different states. I am more savvy on the workers' comp side down here in Florida than I am in New York. So I'm going to leave that to the workers' comp conversation in New York to a New York professional. But Florida, yeah, you can have two active claims, personal injury, workers' comp. They kind of line up and they run side by side, but you would bring in any third parties that were involved on the site, on the scene, while bringing that workers' comp insurance claim.
Okay, so I don't know anything about workers' comp other than I did take a class in law school. And there's like a chart. Like if you have a damaged thumb, like this is how much you get. If you have
that workers' comp is tricky. I know. I don't specialize on workers' comp. So I'll refer the workers' comp to a workers' comp attorney and then we'll work in line with each other. You're exactly right. And I don't know a ton about it myself either, but it's exactly what you say, that there's like this disability chart rating where it's like they're very strict with the workers' comp, that I know. And they'll make you come in for certain appointments. You have to get approved for certain treatments. So it's different than personal injury. With personal injury, go get treated, seek your doctors, pick your doctors, do what you got to do. We'll present that and we're going to get, try to push for maximum value in line with the coverage. But in workers' comp, it's like, my understanding is they choose the doctor that gets to get approved, the doctor that you're going to, and then there's ratings for value.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that it works that way, but not in personal injury, because you would think somebody would want to try to bring that over into the personal injury.
I hope not.
It would be easier.
I'm no workers' comp expert, but I hope they don't bring that bad juju over to the personal injury side.
Well, you might have just answered my question. I was going to ask you, do people generally do better with the personal injury claim or workers' comp?
Personal injury.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, personal injury. Yep, definitely. And most people, I find I'm no workers' comp expert, so I hope that this is not the case. But it seems to me when I'm having the conversation with clients, they kind of get a little uneasy if you bring up the workers' comp talk, because they're like, well, I don't want to rattle, my employer's feathers. They don't want to rattle the boat or shake the boat. So they seem to be more interested on the general personal injury side. And I see that the recoveries tend to be better on that side. But hey, I'm rooting for the workers' comp too.
And you don't get to pick the one you want. It's usually pretty clear. It's either...
It's clear, right? Like you have a workers' comp claim, you have a personal injury claim, you have both.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good place to end then. Thank you. So people, I hope you got some good tips on what to do, what not to do in different situations. And I feel like we could probably do a round 2 of this, and there's plenty more to talk about, but thank you for your time. And just shout out your website for people that...
Yes, absolutely. Jennifer Netska with Netska Law Group. We're a female firm of 6 ladies. All things personal injury, New York or Florida. You can find me on Instagram at attorney Netska or at netskalaw.com. Thank you,
Okay, and
Christina, for having me.
yeah, of course. I'll put that in the show notes so people can find you. And we'll see you in Florida. You're listening to Lawyer Radio, the official podcast of Wolf Esquires. Follow us on Instagram at Wolf Esquires. If you like what you heard, subscribe and share. And if you need a lawyer who actually gets it, you know where to find us. This podcast is for informational purposes only. It's not legal advice, and listening doesn't make us your lawyers. If you need real legal advice, call a lawyer, preferably one who knows what they're doing.